Howdy, beloveds. My name is Deshae Jackson. I serve as the Minister of Music at First Christian Church Granbury, and I am a student at Bright Divinity School. I'm a third-year MDiv student. And it is an honor and a privilege to be workshopping with you all. And even though we cannot be together in the same space, I hope this is still just as fun, and I want you to understand that even though we have to be distanced now, I would rather practice safe practices now so I can later meet you all without a mask. So, back to the topic, how to lead worship. This is something that I was trained, and yes, I mean trained, at the age of 8 to do. See, if you're an extrovert, this may be more enjoyable. And for my introverted friends, well, buckle in. Just know you're not alone. So I have about 10 to 15 minutes to cover these 5 points. So y'all, let's get started. So what does it mean to worship? Or what does it mean to lead worship? I mean, it could be as simple as saying lead worship. But like any good performer, there is so much prep work that is needed to be uncovered. See, the act of leading worship is more than standing at a lectern or a pulpit and reading. A cardboard cutout with a pre-recorded track could accomplish the exact same thing. So you are responsible for guiding the congregation through the service who may or may not have a worship guide. You also have the ability to renew the energy in a service if it starts to fall flat. Your position is more than a box to check off as the service progresses. So let's talk about preparing your materials. Having access to your materials becomes even more important when you can't find them and it's 2 minutes before you have to speak. Copies are important, y'all. Like, you can do this in a myriad of ways. If you're reading scripture or you're doing a communion meditation, perhaps prayer or some other part of the service, make sure that you have a copy to practice with. Make sure that you have a copy in the designated spot for worship, whether that be on the pulpit, the lectern, in your pew, on the communion table. And then have a copy on an electronic device such as your phone, an iPad, something. An electronic copy will sometimes save the day, y'all. See, the first time that I did a sermon, I was 15. And I wrote out my sermon, and it was just, well, it was something for at least being 15. It has happened to be that I was also serving a Baptist church up the street from us. And so I left all my notes at the Baptist church because that's where I went for youth group. And so when Sunday morning rolled around and it was time for me to preach, I didn't have my manuscript. I had no notes. And I didn't figure it out till about 5 minutes before it was time, and I panicked. I freaked out. And I think I remember my sermon was about trusting in God, and it lasted probably less than 2 minutes. In which case, then I called on my cousin, who was the choir director, to get the congregation going in a song because I didn't have any more material. Y'all will thank me for having extra copies. See, once you have your materials gathered, practice. And I'm maybe saying that as like a former music teacher, music educator, but practice, y'all. Read everything slowly. Become familiar with the names and the passages, words that require extra emphasis, and diction. Remember that diction is done with the tip of the tongue and the teeth. When people become nervous, they tend to read faster, they soften their voice, and muddle the clarity in their voice. If you are a musician and you'll be providing a solo or leading a hymn, friends, know your words. And I can't stress it enough, diction, diction, diction. Know the structure of your music. And know your cadence spots in case you have to cut the music short during the service. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best, y'all. I don't mean to make this sound negative, but it's just good to be prepared. The next thing is knowing your congregation. When you know your congregation or the congregation you're speaking to, it can actually save you in future nervousness and build your success. See, in preaching, we call this exegeting the congregation. When you know how the congregation interacts, talks, you find a way to communicate your materials effectively. This does not mean that you sacrifice your character, but I'll get to that in the next point. So if you're leading worship in your home congregation, y'all, I'm going to tell you that there's probably a lot of grace that will abound. I mean, no matter the level of professionalism or experience, everybody, and I mean everybody, makes mistakes. So I hinted out this next one kind of earlier in the intro, was that figuring out what your introversion is or your extroversion, and understanding like how your personality type functions with your processing type. See, some people like to reflect on their Enneagram, so I'll say that I am an Enneagram number 2. So people know that, or their Myers-Briggs, I think I was an ENFJ, which is, introvert, some other things, judging. My bad about the judging. Or a BuzzFeed quiz to help people understand their personality. Hope you were listening. Just wanted to check. See, if you don't know your personality, that is perfectly fine. Your personality will continue to change as you mature, so it's okay to try new things. If your personality has a tremendous presence, think how you could use that presence with an energetic congregation, with a quiet congregation, or a blended congregation. And when I say blended, that can mean ages, it can mean race, it can mean worshiping styles. No matter, it is just a bunch of different people together. And I challenge my friends on the other side of the spectrum who are not fans of being in the spotlight, how you might use your personality to address these congregations. I encourage you to stretch yourself. What I am not encouraging you to do is be disingenuous or fake. It's okay to be stretched in different spaces. So if your voice produces more volume and you have a more relaxed congregation, work on giving your words energy, giving them emphasis, and not so much increasing the volume. When we talk about introversion and extroversion, we are discussing how people also process. For an introvert, time away from people, it helps them to recharge and helps them to move forward then. An extrovert might enjoy the company of a few persons to help them break through a situation. But just because you are one of those does not make you better than the other one serving in the ministry. Let me say that again. Just because you are one of those types does not mean that you are more suited or ill-equipped to fulfill a role in ministry above or below anybody else. How people present themselves in front of a crowd does not actually determine if they're an introvert or extrovert. See, the funny thing is that your favorite loud pastor might actually be an introvert. They're just really good at presenting their information to y'all. Next, recenter yourself. Find a moment to step away from the situation. There are so many flashing things and multiple voices blabbling, and there are papers ruffling everywhere. The intensity of it all can become so much in the moment. Stepping away allows you to create a chance to balance those sights and those sounds so that you can enter these spaces with a more clear mind. And the last thing, and the most important thing that I want to stress to you all, is to breathe. We underestimate breathing until it's time and we are nervous and we start hyperventilating. Step away, like we did with centering ourselves, into a quiet room. Close your eyes or focus on one object in the room and take a deep breath in and exhale out. So I'm going to ask you to join me in this. Take a deep breath in and exhale out. Your breath and God's breath remain connected. Say a little prayer and remember that God has got your back, friends. Regardless of how you do, there's always room to grow. Not every situation is going to be perfect, and not every situation is going to be catastrophic, y'all. Leading worship is a great way for us to figure out what our gifts are and even explore new ones that we had no idea. Do not let nerves have the final say because God remains proud of you. God rejoices when you bring this energy into worship, and all you have to do is say yes. So when it comes time to lead worship or try it out, say yes, y'all. Thank you.